Tim Sackett's 2024 predictions for talent acquisition next on the RecTech podcast.
Welcome to RecTech, the podcast where recruiting and technology intersect. Each month, you'll hear from vendors shaping the recruiting world, along with recruiters who'll tell you how they use technology to hire talent. Now, here's your host, the mad scientist of online recruiting, Chris Russell.
Hey again, RecTechies. Welcome to the only podcast that helps employers and recruiters connect with more candidates through technology-inspired conversations. Mastering the execution of recruiting technology is the key to hiring great talent, and that's why this show exists. All right, you know him, you love him. HR influencer Tim Sackett is here to talk about his predictions for the coming year. And just a reminder to the audience, Tim is not a life coach. Tim, good to see you, man.
Yeah, good to be here. Good to be into 2024. That's for sure.
Definitely. First, I want to get your thoughts on 2023. It's kind of a turbulent year in TA, a lot of layoffs, acquisitions, weird job market. What were your thoughts going in from last year?
Yeah, it was like weird is a good word for it, because you had this kind of odd, like you had layoffs happening like around the tech sector, and really a lot of high priced kind of talent acquisition people losing their jobs, and the rest of the world was still on fire, like trying to hire people. And so like it was weird because the media was trying to portray like that it was bad economy and bad jobs, but every other like metric was like, no, we still have super low unemployment. We're still struggling to hire. Like it didn't matter like what part of the year I was in. If I went to a conference or I went and talked to a head of TA, they were like, we cannot find enough like people. Like without skills, with skills, it didn't matter. It was just flat out, we need more. And that to me, like, so I was always like this weird disconnect between what was happening. And then you go, oh, the interest rates, and you don't get free money anymore, and all these tech companies and they overhired, and like, so it all kind of made sense from a business standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
But it was definitely like fractured in weird ways,
Yeah. Yeah, it should be interesting for this year. I'm predicting, I tracked 39 acquisitions in the space last year, HR tech. So my prediction is that I think we're going to see more in 2024.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah. I think there's so many startups in our space that are struggling to get more money to keep going, and some really good products. And I think those who are sitting on some cash out there and doing well, and I think they're going to be able to pick off some really good check. I had one of those CEOs who works for a company that is sitting on a bunch of cash ask me, they're like, because it's always the platform play, or does this fit with what we have? And they were like, hey, doesn't it make sense for us to pick off some really good tech and just like keep going with it? Because once all this kind of turns around, like we'll be at, he's like, why? He's like, do the buyers really care if it's in a platform or if it's a standalone? And I'm like, the buyer just cares that it actually works. That's it. Like, that's the best thing a buyer can say about your tech is like, holy crap, it actually does what what they said it would do.
Exactly. That's cool. All right, I'm going to share my screen here. I'll pull up your blog post over at timsackett.com. And you had a post about the acquisitions. Caught my eye last week, so I want to get you on the pod and bring it to life a bit here. So yeah, let's do that. So let's start out with your first idea. Video interviews will become a thing. Just kidding. That would have been an amazing prediction 10 years ago.
I think like everyone's given up on the video interview thing, but I think AI is going to have a resurgence of the strength of the video interview, because again, I think what HireVue tried to do a decade ago was show like, oh my gosh, when you video somebody, there's so many attributes that you can pull from this. And so I think the AI will help, right? With bring some of that back. The other side of it though, is like, I think that we've missed this whole thing. And like, I'll give you an example. Is like, if you give a hiring manager 5 resumes, they're going to look at the resumes. If they don't see the right title or the right company, they're just going to be like, okay, maybe I'll interview this person, that person. If you sent them literally like 30-second commercials of these individuals that were video based, that were, and they would go, oh yeah, number 1, 4, and 5. I want to interview those folks, right? And people will go, wait a minute, that could be like loaded with kind of implicit, unconscious, conscious bias and stuff like that. I'm like, you could, but again, AI is going to show me in my pipeline. It's going to show me if that manager is actually being biased or not. And I can address those individual issues. I don't think I mean, again, we all have bias. I don't think people are specifically trying to be biased when they're trying to hire. I think they're trying to hire the right talent for their team. Now, do we have people that do have bias? For sure. But again, my data is going to show me who those people are, and I'll deal with those one-offs. The advantage of being able to move really fast with something like this. And do I think this is like a solution that's going to solve every ill that we have in TA? No. I would just love to see the selection difference between, hey, keep doing your send in resumes and applications to a manager, or let's send a bunch of like short-term, like short-range video clips to a hiring manager and see what the reaction is differently in terms of how many they select to an actual interview. I think they would actually select more people to interview overall.
Seems like the Zoom, pre-screen has kind of killed just the overall video, in the TA process almost.
No, and a lot of the video tech is like, oh yeah, we record everything. So you can send the full like screening to a manager.
right.
A manager doesn't have 20, 30 minutes to look at a stupid screen, like, and here you ask the same questions over and over. What they want is they want like a highlight reel, right? Just give me the highlight reel. Just let me see like all 5 people in 5 minutes,
Yeah. Your second one here is one that really I want to talk about a lot because you say AI that constantly follows up with candidates and hiring managers. And that's one of the biggest problems of the recruiting process today, the job search process, the black hole. You hear that constantly from candidates, and
constantly.
It's like we're never getting better at that communication piece, Tim.
Yeah. No, and when I take a look at the recruiters that I've hired, the ones that are the best in my life, like if I had to do an all-star, team of recruiters, the one commonality they would have every single time would be they just are maniacal about follow-up, and it's both ways. They follow up with hiring managers to the point where the hiring manager goes, leave me alone. Like you're stalking me. And they'll keep following up, right? Because what they know is the only way I get that position filled is if the hiring manager actually interviews and makes a decision, and you have to follow up. I see this in a lot of failed recruiters, especially young recruiters that will go, yeah, I sent them the applications, or I sent them the profiles, or I sent them the resumes on Monday. And if I don't hear from them until Friday, I'll send another email Friday following up. And you're like, what? No, I mean, you send them Monday morning. If I'm not hearing anything by Monday afternoon, I'm sending a message. If by Tuesday morning, if they haven't replied, I'm probably calling or going to visit their desk or whatever, right? Like, and then on candidates, it's the same way. It's like you have the ability, and we see people do this different ways. Like they'll like on Friday afternoons after 3, I send every candidate that I'm in process with, I'll send them a quick update, right? And just do it. And the candidates appreciate that so much. I just think that this is where AI could be really good. I had a couple of vendors, Chris, that actually reached out to me and goes, oh, we already do this. I'm like, no, you don't.
No, you don't.
No, you don't. Stop it. You don't. You don't really follow up the way a real person follows up. And I think that's where Gen AI can step in and actually make it sound like you, the recruiter, both ways. And then as things like no response happens, or some response happens, or weird response happens, the AI lets you know, like, hey, here's an issue, right, that cropped up, or here's a question that came, and gives you the prioritization of like kind of how to actually follow up, because we just don't have the capacity to, if you're working on average, like, corporate recruiters working 20 to 50 recs, kind of crazy numbers. There's no way they're going to be able to follow up with all those recs and all of those candidates unless they have some kind of, in my mind, an AI-driven assistant that's helping them.
We need some kind of like candidate first applicant tracking system to come out and do this stuff, like make it a reality here. Yeah. It actually, is built from the candidate's perspective first, in my opinion.
There's one problem with that I see in corporate talent acquisition. And I do a lot of like enterprise level TA, kind of like recruiting diagnostics. The recruiters don't use the ATS, and that's not an ATS problem. It's a recruiter problem, and it's a management fault. It's kind of a leadership problem, right? Because they're actually not using the ATS the way it's designed to be used, so you can actually collect data, collect process points, do all of this stuff so you understand your funnel. Because at that point, the AI could easily update candidates to say, hey,
right.
Your resume or your application was sent to a hiring manager, and the recruiter and the hiring manager actually had a conversation about you today. More to follow, right? And it can't, how like excited a candidate would be, like, holy crap, like amazing, I can't wait to hear, right, what the next steps are, or whatever that might be. but the only way you get that is if you actually kind of require your recruiters to work within the process and system that you purchased because you thought it was going to help you be better. And so I think every ATS has the ability to be a candidate first ATS with the right AI engine behind it, if again we have our recruiters actually using it the way they should.
Looking for your next HR technology role? Go to your browser, type in hrtechjob.com, and browse hundreds of jobs with the best HR technology vendors. HR tech professionals finally have a dedicated job marketplace to find work or be found. Sign up for job alerts or post a resume. Discover jobs with companies like Workday, Phenom, HiBob, Deal, and more. You'll even find HR tech roles with employers in case you want to work with managing HCM or HRIS platforms. HR Tech Job, the only job market for HR technology careers. Join us at hrtechjob.com.
All right, next one. We all know there are AI application bots candidates are using to help candidates apply to 100 jobs at a time. So there's that famous product called Lazy Apply. You've probably heard of that one.
Yeah.
Where it lets you apply to like hundreds of jobs at once.
Oh yeah.
How's that going to affect everything?
Oh, I think, yeah. I mean, I don't think it's really being widely used yet. I hear once in a while, I hear stuff from like, what it shows up as is like, it's just more recruiters going, I posted this job. I had 100 people apply. Out of the 100, 3 of them were actually qualified. Right. And then you go, so why are all these people applying to jobs that they're unqualified for? And then you go, well, I mean, you know how these AI engines work. Like they're just not very, they take some time to actually be good and actually understand and all this other stuff. Like, and when the ones that are out there now are just literally they're just heavy machines that are just like, nope, well, we can force apply to 200 jobs a day or an hour or a minute or whatever. And, we're just going to have you apply to everything. And it's just a matter of just numbers. I think what we see is we're going to see those things are going to continue. We're not going to stop them. So then we need the matching software on top, whether that's in the ATS or a standalone product that's going to filter through all of these applications and actually let the ones that are actually qualified actually find the recruiter and make it to the next step in the process and do all of that. And the AI actually might know, like, hey, this is actually coming from an AI bot that's from the application side, but this person actually is semi-qualified. Let's reach out to them in our own process and actually and have them do some pre-assessments or have them answer some other questions or do some screening or whatever that might be. So I think we're going to have this battle of AIs between candidates and companies that's going to filter out most of the garbage. At least that's my hope. So
yeah, did you ever see that movie Her with Joaquin Phoenix?
Yep.
There was a couple of spots in there where like his voicemail, he checked his voicemail every day. It was like that was his AI.
Yeah.
And it read his emails to him, but it also read like, oh, you have 3 job offers from this and this and this. Would you like me to apply to this job? And I think, by the way,
like Chris, I think like when you take a look at what Microsoft is doing and you take a look at all the verbal stuff, I don't think we're that far away. I think we're going to be talking to our computers in 2024 in some applications. And if Microsoft actually beats everybody to the punch, or Google, whoever, potentially it might be a real thing by the end of 2024 where you have like an AI reading you like your email and you're going, yeah, skip that one, delete that one. Oh, reply to that one that, for that we need to schedule a meeting or what. Like you can just have this conversation with your AI. I think that's going to be the real thing.
Yeah. And we were talking about your next one at the party last week at the BFF party in New York. Real human contact becomes a recruiting luxury in the future. And I totally agree with that.
Yes.
As AI starts to take over here, but it's going to be really, that's the difference between like the really good companies in recruiting in the years ahead, the ones that have real actual humans doing some of the recruiting.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, again, like I'm all for the AI automation. I'm a fan of the fountains and the paradoxes and the human leads and all of these really good AI kind of, apply, products that are out there. But also I think there's a time when you have to put the human back into the loop, and that's going to be a luxury. It's going to feel white glove. It's going to feel higher end to the candidate. And especially at a low volume recruiting, you're going to see some companies that will immediately go right to like you and I both know, like all the big HCM recruiting mods that are out there, and even a lot of the big ATS standalones that are out there, it's painful to go through that apply process. And if you're really talented, are you going to put in 15 or 20 minutes or even 5 minutes of just aggravation to make a profile and apply to a job? Or if somehow it finds you and you click on something and you go, no, I just want to talk to somebody right now. Like I'm interested, but I want to talk to a real human. Now, a lot of Gen Zers, I think, and even younger millennials will go, oh God, I would never want to talk to a real person. They say that, but when you really dig into their behavior, they want to talk to a real person after they've made the decision that, oh yeah, this is actually something I'm interested in, right?
Yeah.
At that point, they're done with the AI. And I think that's the key here is where, when do we turn off the AI and turn on the human in the process? And I think right now it's like all AI until you get to like, oh, it's an interview. Now you get to the real person. And I'm like, I'm not sure that's the right spot. So I think there's a human element to the TA that needs to be turned on. I mean, in everyone's process and everyone's job family is going to be a little different on it.
Does this mean we've seen sort of peak recruiter staffing, Tim, as far as just the teams inside these organizations, do you think?
In terms of number?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think we're going to see we've seen this for the last 3 decades of automation and recruiting, right? Where we keep trying to make things better and better and better. So I think, the more we move into AI, the more we move into automation, I don't think you need more people. I think you're going to rearrange a lot of these people to do different jobs. And again, to me, it's that human luxury side.
Yep. Your last prediction, remote work is not the answer for most people. I think hybrid is the future, but
yeah,
what's your take on that?
I mean, honestly, it pisses me off when I hear an HR person like beating the drum and screaming at the top of their lungs that remote work is everything and it's the answer and blah, blah, blah. Because what it shows me is that they're actually, at best, they're naive. At worst, they're actually destructive and stupid, right? Because while it might be the right thing for them and their productivity, everybody's going to have a different level of this, right? Chris, like, you're a remote guy, you're super productive. If I told you, hey, tomorrow I'm going to have you work in a cubicle in Google, you would probably be like, and you wouldn't be as productive, right?
One day, maybe.
Right? Maybe you would. I don't know. But here's what I know is that I have people on my own team that are full remote and they're amazing and they're more productive because I actually can measure their productivity and had baseline before we went remote. And then I had people that failed and I had people that are in between. And so we keep tweaking to find out like, hey, what is the actual optimal like space for you? Is that a couple of days in the office? Is that 3 days at home? Is that 4 days in Cayman and 1 day like in a work, we work, whatever that might be? Our job as HR professionals should be to find the optimal setup for each individual. It shouldn't be to yell and scream at the top of our lungs that every single person should be remote, because that you're just dumb at that point. Like, that's not the optimal part. And then like I go back to younger people, and we see this in university studies where they go, hey, I want an in-office experience. I might not want to be in the office 5 days a week, but maybe half or 75% of the time I want in office because I need to build my network. I need to build my relationships. I need to learn. And it's really hard to do that in a fully remote capacity.
Yep. Good stuff, man. So what's this about a new book I hear?
Well, it's kind of a new book, kind of like, so Sherm asked me to say, hey, like this Talent Fix, like it was 5 years ago. It's still selling, but we think it needs to be updated. And I said, okay. And so they were like, hey, we just want to do like an updated version. And I go, well, I have so much more I want to add. And so we did update the original book, but then I literally put in almost 50% more of like a second book. So like it's doubled in size. So there's a lot of new stuff. There's updated stuff from the old stuff. So it's Talent Fix Volume 2. That'll be out April at Sherm Talent. So I'm super excited about that. It's done. It's fully baked. It's just into publisher and editor right now.
Nice. And you can buy it where? On Amazon's and Sherm?
It'll be on Amazon, Sherm Store, but again, probably not until April.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Where else are you traveling this year? What shows?
I'll be at all the big ones. So I'll be at Talent. I'll be at National for Sherm. I'll be at HR Tech. I'll probably be at a bunch of the user conferences. I'll be at RecFest in Nashville. That was one of my favorite ones for 23. I mean, I went to the UK one a couple of times. That's amazing. So if you have a chance to go to Europe, England, and go to that one, you should check it out. It's 98.5% European-based companies and practitioners, but it's amazing. And I think the one in Nashville will be the same. I'm actually bringing my full team down to this one this year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
So I thought, I mean, it was a miss. Again, I didn't know what this one would be. And then when I got down there, I was like, I should have wrote them all down. So we'll do it this year.
Yeah, RecFest is a refreshing break from the traditional conference. I think that's why.
Yeah,
I like it.
it's still, I mean, and like the one thing I found about RecFest is, unlike a lot of the other ones, is like you end up getting into so many conversations with other practitioners and having real conversations about stuff because the content is shorter. It's not right on top of each other necessarily. So you have, and you're walking, it's outdoors and you're walking from tent to tent, and you just end up running into a lot of people and having conversations. And that's
Yeah, it
what
was
I
so
saw.
informal. You know, it was very relaxed
Yeah.
atmosphere and chill, and it was just a really pleasant experience overall. So
Yeah. So I'm excited about that. And my youngest son actually is going to be in Australia for a semester study abroad. So at some point I'll be in Melbourne. And I'm hoping to, when I'm there, I can kill two birds with one stone and find a conference or something that way. So
sounds good, man. All right, well, that will do it for this episode of the RecTech Podcast. Tim, thanks for stopping by today.
Thanks for having me.
Great to see you again. Be sure to follow us on the socials, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, via the @RecTech Media handle. See every podcast, video, and blog we publish. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, always be recruiting.
Another episode of RecTech is in the books. Follow Chris on Twitter @ChrisRussell or visit rectechmedia.com, where you can find the audio and links for this show on our blog. RecTech Media helps keep employers and recruiters up to date through our podcasts, webinars, and articles. So be sure to check out our other sites, Recruiting Headlines and HR Podcasters, to stay on top of recruiting industry trends. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon on the next episode of RecTech, the Recruiting Technology Podcast.